Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps. Today we're considering the country of Bolivia, and in particular the rising development and challenge of the increasing number of sects in this country. Although 80% of Bolivians declare themselves as Catholics, studies have shown that the most active religious groups in Bolivia are evangelical churches and personality-based sects. To tell us more, it's my privilege to welcome Father Ariel Beramendi, the Latin American representative at the Pontifical Council for Social Communications here at the Vatican in Rome. Before we speak with Father Ariel, let's watch now a short documentary addressing the situation of sects in Bolivia.
Bolivia is a predominantly Catholic country, the seeds of Christianity sowed deep in the heart of the native culture centuries ago and through Catholic missionaries who helped and continue to help the native populations appreciate the human values inherent in their culture. Consequently, Catholicism has become an essential part of the Bolivian character and worldview. In the early 1950s, however, Bolivia witnessed an influx of new movements of Christian and non-Christian personality-based religious groups, which undertook an intense proselytizing campaign not only in Bolivia, but throughout Latin America. Social crises and poverty have produced enormous internal migrations, often resulting in uprooted families in isolation. Detached from their mother communities and from their traditional livelihoods, internal migrants have succumbed to living in the city's slums. In these situations, families create new spaces to develop a sense of belonging and to integrate themselves to a new and often hostile city life. The Catholic Church is increasingly concerned about the negative influence of these new religious groups, successfully exploiting the emotional and material needs of these internal migrants. The proliferation of new religious movements with opaque origins, structure and objectives are a challenge for the local church. Consequently, the Catholic Church is called to not only focus on the spiritual and pastoral needs, but also to provide clear and accurate information to the faithful, allowing them to choose with true freedom when faced with these new religious offers.
Es un hecho que todos los pueblos latinoamericanos vivimos el pluralismo religioso.
It is a fact that every town in Latin America is experiencing a new religious pluralism. The Catholic Church is no longer alone. Not only are mainline Christian churches, the free churches present, but also the neo-Pentecostals and the so-called sects, or more correctly, new religious movements. There are also non-Christian religions, not a high percentage, but they nonetheless comprise a symbolic presence within this religious pluralism.
Pero que hacen presencia simbólica dentro de este pluralismo religioso. El discurso que utilizan.
Neo-Pentecostalism employs a typical language. These churches differentiate themselves through their emotional preaching, attitudes and liturgies. They are different from the traditional Protestant or evangelical churches. They draw in a lot of people to their churches, and these people are not bound by any obligations as required by the Catholic Church. Remember that the Catholic Church requires a social commitment, a coherence between what you believe and what you do. This is what we call a coherence between faith and life. We believe that today people choose these new churches because they are not obliged to do anything. You simply go to church on Sunday, have a personal encounter with the Lord, you praise the Lord, a personal relationship with God, and see you later. I'm not committed to anything, but only to come back to the show the following Sunday, to experience the show as a community, and, again, see you later. This is their style, and for this reason a lot of people like it.
Ese es el ritmo y por eso mucha gente gusta de aquello.
In Bolivia, as throughout Latin America, the Catholic Church serves to unify and create participatory spaces. Within this structure, people look to their community for a deeper and more integrated social as well as personal development. In many cases, the presence of the Catholic Church is essential for the just and peaceful solution of social conflicts at the core of these societies. Many of the new non-Catholic religious movements take an aggressive position towards the Catholic Church and towards the local traditions of the native culture. Often they find their identity in opposition to Catholicism, basing their arguments in fear and in many cases taking advantage of the poverty and ignorance for further conversions. The result is the breakup of families and the polarization within once unified neighborhoods and communities.
¿Qué cosa quieres filmando? ¿Qué cosa quieres filmando? ¿Qué cosa quieres? No puedes.
They come and say that things are happening because it is the end of the world and that Christ is coming soon. They say everyone should be converted. Catholics must stop being Catholics if they want to be saved. They use very specific terminology. There are Seventh-day Adventists, the Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses. All these denominations are now here in Achacachi. The techniques are familiar. They preach and use media such as television. The Seventh-day Adventists have just developed a big channel, broadcasting 24 hours a day. They introduce fear into the people with ideas like it is the end of the world, or that God will punish them if they do not convert to their religion. Another technique employed is money. They pay the families. They offer up to $5 for the conversion of a 5-year-old boy. This is attractive. They don't go because of their faith, but because of money.
A todos especialmente, ¿no? Entonces todos van, no será tanto por la fe, sino es por la plata que van. Pensamos y creemos que
the Catholic Church faces a great challenge. We wonder why the sects are so successful, and we think that the main reason is because our people are not prepared. They are not educated, and these groups take advantage of people's ignorance. Considering all this, what can I do as a Catholic priest? The answer is training courses. Enough training courses for catechists, for leaders, so that they can educate their people, their community. That is to say, above all, we need education.
As a traditional church in Latin America, Catholicism works to encourage the participation of every faithful. This implies organizing participation according to a great variety of cultural characteristics and social realities. Equally, the Church is working to further education, both human and Christian. The hope is that Catholics will be able to acquire a deeper knowledge about their own faith and the influence of faith in their spiritual, moral, and social environments. Education, then, is the best answer in confronting the more opportunistic religious groups working in the area. Despite the importance of education, the Bolivian Church does not often have the resources to continue and develop this activity. For this reason, cooperation from international Catholic charities like Aid to the Church in Need are vital to this training program.
Sects represent an important challenge for the Church in Bolivia because of their negative influence and the harm they are doing to the Church. They bleed us little by little. They deprive us of our people, our simple and humble people who do not have either the sufficient religious or sometimes human education. They persuade with a variety of attractions, and in this way, our Christian communities are becoming weaker and weaker. We have thousands of catechists. In this city we have about 1,500 youths who help in the parishes preparing the sacraments. But this is directed to only one part of the population. Young people who are going to receive confirmation, or children and youths who are receiving First Communion. But we need to train more adults to help with adult education and help the small Christian communities so that they can reflect more deeply on their faith and give witness through their own lives. Here in the city, we know that when we work intensively, our people come back to the Catholic Church. A few years ago, we undertook a mission throughout the whole city, and we really saw how people returned. One can see that they see that other religious offers are neither sufficient nor satisfactory. The novelty is somehow superficial, and it doesn't last long. It is somehow unfulfilling. And then they look at things again and say no, and come back to their Christian roots. That is why we keep on saying that we need people and hard work to organize missions, to train pastoral agents, catechists, those responsible for communities.
The desire of Bolivian Catholics for a mature and well-founded faith is reflected through the enthusiastic response to the educational opportunities provided. Participants derive from a varied social and cultural background, many having travelled hundreds of kilometers to attend.
This book was given to us in a meeting we had with Monsignor about the Vicaria Norte. I use it with groups of young people and faith groups. In my community, when I want to explain something, I have to translate into our Quechua language. It's very useful because before we only had some blue songbooks, but these books have helped us meditate, speak, and understand things better.
Welcome, Father Beramendi, and thank you for being here with us today. Father, to give a bit of a context to our topic, sects in Bolivia, I want to talk a bit about the faith of the Catholic Church in Bolivia. How would you define faith in Bolivia?
The faith of the Bolivian people is part of the life. I would say it's a simple faith, not simplistic, but it's part of the life because people live with God in the traditions, in their culture. In fact, the religiosity is a kind of popular religiosity.
What does that mean, popular religiosity?
People will, for example, celebrate the saints or Our Lady, and so then we have traditions like to dance for the saints or to the music, make music for the saints through the streets or fireworks.
But it's not superstitious. It's not a superstitious faith.
I think the evangelization has been done very well. It was with lots of respect in favor of the traditions. Obviously, there are some limits. Obviously, there are a kind of elements which can be superstitious elements, and the church will be very clear to say that it's not the Catholic faith, it's not Christian faith, and it's not good even. So in that sense was a very clear difference.
So you could say that the rosary is very strong, processions to Our Lady would be strong.
Yes, but at the same time I would say it's a simple faith, because for example, if I want to celebrate my St. Anthony, I would say I take the St. Anthony that I have in my house to the church, and people will say I'm going to hear the mass with my son, because he has to hear the mass as well. This kind of faith. If some people have some problems as well, will go to prayer. They will go to ask the church or talk with the priest. They feel that the Catholic Church is part of their life.
So it's very lived faith.
Yeah. Probably there is not a very deep faith as in other countries.
It is said that over 80% of Bolivians are Catholic. Is this an accurate figure?
Yes, 80% I think sounds sensible. We are, as a country, the majority are Catholics.
How important is the church as an organization, as a structure to the society? For example, in its work with the poor, in its we've addressed the prayer side, but how important is the church also structurally to Bolivian society?
The institution of the church is very important. People and the society in itself, even if they are not Catholic, they believe in the church as an institution. In fact, there are so many movements and social movements that they ask to the church to become a mediator in the problems in the society. This can be good or can be not good. In any case, this shows that the church is still an institution that people believe in it. And obviously, as well, the work with the poor, the human development that makes the church is an important element as well in our history.
I want to talk now a little bit more about a new challenge or threat, or how you want to see it, which is the rapid development of sects, not only in Bolivia but all across Latin America. How do you see this challenge to the church in Bolivia? Are sects coming, and how is it being developed in Bolivia?
We have lots of sects, and they are small groups of congregations. Obviously, there are some churches serious institutions as well, but the sects, the difference is that we have lots of small groups, and sometimes they fight between them, and from this small congregation start another kind of sects, another kind of church, we can call them.
I suppose actually we have to take care in defining. Perhaps I should have started like that. We're not talking about mainline religious churches. We're not talking about the established traditions. Would these be personality-based churches? How would you define a sect in Bolivia?
I will define a fundamentalism group of faith, and then small congregation as well. And many of them are of Pentecostal inspiration, and so they work with the people. They're as well very apocalyptic. That's a characteristic of them.
I was going to ask you, because in other parts of Latin America there is a tendency to what we call the prosperity gospel, or health and wealth. That is, that the idea that the gospel, that everybody should be successful. God wants us to be successful. He doesn't want anybody to suffer. So all the prayer and activity should go towards the betterment of our well-being, so suffering is left on the side. But you're saying that this prosperity gospel is not really...
It's not present in there. It's not present.
It's more of an apocalyptic approach.
Apocalyptic indeed, because all the time they are speaking about the end of the world, that the God is coming just to separate the good and the bad sheep, you know. So it's a kind of, these groups, these sects create a fear in the people, and in one sense as well it's a kind of brainwash, because if the end of the world is already here, they must get away everything that they have.
And so part of that money also would then go to the
Yes.
to the new church.
Definitely, yes. And I think it's not fair what happened. And many of the people which goes inside these groups are simple people. I mean, talking about knowledge.
The poor people.
The poor people, the simple people, yeah.
How does the church try and counteract this development of the sects?
Until now, the Catholic Church has been very respectful as well with the faith of the persons, in the sense that the Catholic Church as an institution has proclaimed a gospel of freedom, a gospel of relation, mature relation with God. A human person must be mature in the relation with God, you know, and obviously as well must be free in the relation with God. And now it's starting to show what a kind of truth faith is in difference with this kind of movement.
What other techniques would sects use to attract new membership?
They use a lot the mass media communications meanings. I mean, the radio we have in Bolivia, we have lots of radios which are evangelical radios, we call them, because all the day they are just repeating a certain kind of messages to the people. And obviously as well the television. In Bolivia there is no Catholic television network, but there are so many small evangelical, we call evangelical televisions, TV stations. So they use, and I must say that they use very well the mass media. Probably they use well, but probably it's not fair in one sense, because they can do it, they can make lots of brainwashing as well through the media, and this can not be ethic.
In this topic of unity, is there dialogue between the Catholic Church and some of these sects?
There will be dialogue with the institutional congregations, and in fact there will be an ecumenical dialogue. But many of these small congregations, small sects, that they can be very strong as well at the same time. Sometimes they are aggressive and there is no dialogue.
Because they set themselves up in opposition to the Catholic Church.
Opposition, yes, because they basically see the Catholic Church like a enemy. And the Catholics, we represent for them a danger, basically. And there are different kind of approach. Even they are in the streets with the gospel, probably with the Bible, they are just shouting about their faith and that the end of the world is already upon us. And obviously the Catholic Church, there's no point of dialogue because we are not speaking the same language, I would say.
Pope Benedict XVI went to Latin America, and in one of his talks, he said, we must keep the teaching the same, but we must find new ways of expressing this teaching. Pope Benedict has also expressed concerns about the activities of the sects in Latin America. How do you see that the Church can reach out in a new way to Bolivian Catholics to encourage them in their faith and support them in their Catholic faith?
I think that there are some elements. One element is the sects. Another element mixed with this is the secularism that is growing up even in South America, in my country, for example, that people for so many years tried to see like a preconception that the Catholic Church had lots of privileges, but I think it's not true. So now the Catholic Church has to respond to these new situations as the secularism, as the sects, being ready to talk about God even without nominate God, in the sense that there must be a dialogue. The Church has a message to say to the society, in one sense, like a community of Catholics. It's very important to see, in one sense, that the Catholic Church is not, they are not just the priests or the bishops. We must have the conscience that the Catholic Church are all we are baptized in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So we have to take the protagonism in our lives. And this will be an answer for this moment, to become protagonists of our faith, which means to become a missionaries, to don't be afraid to be a Catholic in a context which sometimes is against our faith.
Father Ariel Beramendi, thank you for having been with us here today, and we wish you all the best in your post here as representative for Latin America at the Pontifical Council for Social Communications. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us here today on our program. And if you'd like to know more about the situation of the Catholic Church in Bolivia, we ask you to look at the contact information at the end of this program, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Where God Weeps.